Hello, hello. It's a Dev Talk Show on June 22nd of 2022. Here with my co-host Andy Schwam. How you doing, Andy?
I'm doing all right. I got my window open here. I don't know if you hear birds chirping. It is nice.
Maybe a little
The
bit,
weather's
but
good,
yeah.
and yeah, things are good. It's a summer's here officially, right? For you and I, in particular, I think because both of our wives are teachers, and so I think summer has different meaning for teacher families than I think it does for other people. Um, and my kids are hanging out and getting ready for camp and all that kind of stuff. But
Oh yeah, yeah.
still, summer's here. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it now.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely true. Like you said, a couple weeks in here and getting ready for you know, July's around the corner. Here in our neck of the woods, we haven't gotten into the heat wave weather yet. Not like 3, 4 straight days of 90 or anything. In fact, before today, it's been like 75 and sunny and not a cloud in the sky. A little bit of rain today, but whatever. It's still gorgeous. So
Yeah. Hey, what I wanted to mention this. You weren't able to go, but last week
yeah, right.
on Thursday night, Microsoft sponsored, I guess like they're kind of like the first dev event in a while.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was we talked about it like beforehand. I think we must have talked about it Wednesday night. I think that they were doing it at in various cities. And so I went over to Franklin Mills Mall,
Yep.
which is I don't even know if the place is open anymore, quite frankly, but the movie theater is open. It looks kind of abandoned around there. But anyway, that's not the point, right? So Rich Ross was there, our friend Rich Ross,
Yeah.
along with Michael McCallion. I don't know if I even say his name right, and I apologize for butchering that. But Michael over there in the
Yep.
um, also works with Rich over there in the MTC. And I know these did these events in various cities, but it was really cool. A bunch of people that we kind of know from the community were there, and it was just really fun to see a bunch of people. And um, and Rich did a small presentation, and then they showed this video with a bunch of highlights from Build, and it was kind of interesting. It was pretty cool. And then we watched Top Gun, which is a fun movie.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, I'm not speaking for them, for Microsoft or for Rich or anybody who's not here today right now with us, right? But I think they intend to do more of these, right? And it's actually a pretty cool venue for something like this. You don't necessarily have to be in the MTC or in any other venue. Like a movie theater is great. Someone can do a presentation in there, and then we watched a movie, and it was fun, and it kind of God, it felt so normal. But seeing like Rob and Bill were there from Philly.net,
Yep.
right? And I'm like, God, I haven't seen these guys in a long time, and it felt pretty nice to catch up with some people and see some familiar faces and stuff like that. Todd Snyder was there. Your buddy
Oh wow,
Todd was
yeah,
there
yeah. Yep.
from your old podcast,
Yeah. The Static Void
and other people
podcast
were
was
there too.
Todd Snyder, yeah.
Yeah. I hadn't seen him in years, as an example, right? So it was nice. I hope that we start to get back to more of these kind of things. I think Bill was talking about in-person events for Philly.net
Right.
soon. I didn't get into details with him, and I don't have anything to confirm or anything like that. But I think everybody wants to get back to this, to you and I were just talking about this really beforehand, not about that, but about like, we like doing the show, and I feel like I learn stuff every week when we have the show, but it would be great to have, in-person events and get that extra layer of socialization and all that kind of stuff. It was fun. I miss my friends in the community. I miss hanging out with people that I've grown to know really well over the years. Um, I mean, it's like 20 years That gotta be right. So when did Visual Studio come out? That's about when I started doing .NET and joining
You mean the
Philly.net like
very
a year
first?
after that.
Oh, well, I wasn't
No,
sure if you were
like
asking the first Visual Studio or the one with Visual Studio
no,
.net.
yeah, Visual Studio, for .NET. Yeah, it's like 2002 or something, wasn't
2000,
it? I don't know.
2002, I think, was when it officially launched. But if I remember correctly,
Yeah,
in 2000, you could use the beta on it. So,
yeah. So I was not around. I was not involved until I don't think Visual Studio was like officially. So maybe it's a couple of more years. I don't know. The point is, many years that hanging out with people, and I hope we get back to it. It was fun.
yeah. Yeah, sure. I agree. Um, so, what are we going to talk about tonight?
Oh man, I like this. Interestingly, we've been talking a lot lately about Visual Studio Code,
Right.
right? And I think we did a show a couple weeks ago. What's it like working in Visual Studio Code? How's the experience, right? How is it, compared to Visual Studio a little bit, and all that kind of stuff. And it's pretty good. And then you had the idea to say, hey, why don't we build VS Code extension?
Yeah.
Which is something I've never attempted. I've never built. I don't like to lie, so I need to think back here, but I don't think I've ever built a Visual Studio extension, let alone a Visual Studio Code extension. Did you ever build a Visual Studio extension?
I haven't, and that's an interesting idea too, because I mean, we know this being a little bit involved kind of in the community, but Mads Christensen took that, and I almost want to say he works for Microsoft. I almost want to say by himself, almost took that experience like from being a dark art that no one understood to being something that like he promotes, does talks. There's his YouTube channel. There's his blog posts. He wrote extensions to help you write extensions. He wrote one of the most popular extensions. It was that web dev toolkit, and Web Essentials, I think is what it was called, right?
Web Essentials.
It was like a must-have, and then pieces of Web Essentials make it into the core product, and he's happy about that. He's like, great, I can remove it from the extension. I really, like in my mind, when I think about Microsoft employees and I think about Visual Studio extensions, I think about him. But
yeah, it's hard not to.
Yeah,
he's like the godfather of extensions and all that kind of stuff. So so I like the idea of trying to dive in and see what we can do. I don't know if we're changing the world tonight with an extension that's going to go live and do something, but we're talking about seeing what's the experience like. How complicated is this? What does it take to get started with this kind of stuff? And I'm looking forward to learning something again. Another night, another learning moment for Andy at least.
Yeah, let's give
It's
this
like
a
my
shot.
own personal tutorial. Yeah.
And those of you joining us, thanks for being here. If you're watching live on Twitch right now, and if you're not watching live, if you're watching in the future, first of all, let us know who wins the World Series so we can maybe cash in on that right now. But if you're watching in the future, that means you're watching on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/thedevtalkshow. Join us Wednesday nights, 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, right here on YouTube or at twitch.tv/thedevtalkshow. Feel free to join us for that. And so tonight, Andy, I don't know if you've noticed anything interesting right off when you look at my screen here. If anything jumps out at you, here we are in our comfortable, normal, typical desktop environment.
This is pretty cool, actually.
And
it kind of plays into some things we've been talking about lately, which is the ease of using Visual Studio Code as it's a cross-platform editor, right? You don't need to be on Windows machine, and you are not running on a Windows machine. Now, it might be a little small on a stream to see some of the Chrome around the window, right? Unless you have Zoom. Oh yeah, okay. Could start to see things a little better now. And again, I don't know if you're running maybe you can't run Zoom it because it's a
You know what I
Oracle
think?
VM that you're running.
Oh no, Zoom it should work. Here's the problem. I was dumb, and I don't have Zoom it starting when I start the machine, which sounds like the dumbest thing in the world, right?
No,
Like,
I don't. No, why would you? I don't know. I don't do that.
because then what? Well, the reason why is because then the show starts, and I go, oh wait, I don't have Zoom it running, so I have to go start it, and now it started, and now this should work fine. I should. Oh boy, look at that. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was wrong.
Yeah,
Let
because
me
I
try
don't
it one
just.
more time.
Well,
Yeah, it looks like I'd have to think that through. I'm sure there's a way I can make that work. So you're right. What happens is I get over here and Zoom it is no longer receiving the keystroke. But
yeah,
I
that's
can
kind of what
cheat
I
that
thought.
way
Oh,
though.
wait.
So how did
Oh, I know what you did. Yeah, you
Did you
clicked
figure out
out,
what I
right?
did? I went down to
Yeah,
taskbar.
yeah.
I went down to the taskbar and I
And
said,
you
well,
went.
let's zoom in here so Windows gets the message. Yeah.
It worked. Yeah, it
The other
worked.
thing I
So
can
look at
do.
this. So tell us what you're running here.
So this is Linux Mint. Um, I I don't. I will tell you right now. I do not have a favorite. Like I'm not. I don't have some favorite Linux distro, and I have an Ubuntu 20 VM, and this is not. This is running on my local machine in VirtualBox. I actually know that I can. There's a way for me to do this. I don't know if I necessarily want to. Yeah, here it is. So I can get a little bit of screen real estate there by doing host, turning that off, and that'll turn it back. Okay, now I know. So now we're looking at it full screen. So I'm in VirtualBox, running on my machine, and this happens to be Linux Mint. Why did I pick Linux Mint tonight? I don't have a good reason. I've used Ubuntu for a little while. I will not try to proclaim to anybody out here that I am a Linux guru ready to teach you everything about Linux, but I could get around and use it, and I actually do enjoy spending time in Linux. But I was struggling with performance of Ubuntu, and I don't know if it's me. I don't want to try and blame Ubuntu. I don't know if it's me, something I'm not doing. So I got a suggestion that Linux Mint runs. It's a little leaner and runs well in VirtualBox. So I said I'd try it, and yeah, it's working well. So
Cool. So in this virtual machine, you can run Visual Studio Code, right?
right, yeah, that's absolutely right. So I love
Cool as that.
hearing from I'm gonna try from Zuljan0 saying, hello, interesting topic. It never crossed my mind to create a VS Code extension. That's cool. You know, it hadn't really crossed mine either. So we said, well, let's look at how you do it, right? Or what does it take? So you're right. Here in Linux, I've got just a plain old terminal, but I've already installed Visual Studio Code. We are going to use Visual Studio Code to create Visual Studio Code extensions. And something that I think I probably should do is we should probably, this will definitely be in the YouTube show notes, but I kind of want to show everybody that the documentation for this is out there, and kind of like here's where we figured this out. So where is it? Maybe your first. Okay, so I'm gonna get this going in a browser here. Let's get this going so everyone can see, and I'll maximize this. So on the code.visualstudio.com website, if you search in Google, you search for your first extension, search Visual Studio, code.visualstudio.com, and you will run into this. Basically, there's a nice little tutorial, and we're gonna look at this a little bit, but we're also gonna kind of go beyond it a little bit. It's just we're just getting started. We'll get as far as we can get tonight. But the first question is what do you need to use this? And what do you need to do this? Well, you need Node.js, and you need Git, and you need a Node or an npm package that you may remember, Andy. You need an npm package called Yeoman. Do you remember Yeoman?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeoman is cool. Let me just go back a sec. You said you
Yeah. Go
need
ahead.
Git. I
Yep.
mean, do you?
So the reason you
Why do you
do
need?
is because Yeoman, when Yeoman pulls down templates that it uses Git to do that under the hood.
Really?
So yeah, it's invisible in what Yeoman does. In fact, the way you create a Yeoman generator is you create a Git repository that follows a certain convention, and then Yeoman can just pull it. Like, it's really cool. It's not like you have to go register it somewhere or anything. It's magical in a way.
So we don't necessarily need to have our code in a repo. It's just that Yeoman uses Git to get its stuff.
Yeah. In fact, I
I mean,
believe.
obviously, it's best practice to have your code checked into a repo, right? But I was kind of surprised you said it was a requirement. Like, well, why would we need that, right? So that's interesting.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it, because if I can find this,
Yeah, don't worry
then,
about it.
then you'll
Let's
see
let's
what I'm
move on.
talking
Let's
about.
get into this because this is cool.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
what I was going to show
don't worry
you
about
is
the Git thing.
well,
Yeah.
well, here it is, right? This is the generator for VS Code extensions. And
Okay.
basically, when you type yo code, it just goes and says, "Oh,
Yeah.
all right, I'll go here," and it knows how to read these files and figure it out and go from there. So that was my point, basically.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
so you have to have Node. So let's just double check. We have Node. I've got version. This is the LTS version 16.15.1. It doesn't really matter what you use. That means I installed Node. I didn't simply in this particular distribution say apt-get Node, because that got me an older version of Node. So I found basically some instructions to update my apt-get repositories and everything to basically so that when I ran it again, it went and got the LTS version. So that means I have npm, and I don't know if this is a little bit of a blast from the past, because there was a time, Andy, when ASP.NET developers became very familiar with Node and npm and Yo, and we kind of got away from that, I think, in the modern templates and frameworks. But it doesn't mean that there's many ASP.NET developers out there that aren't very familiar with this, especially if they use React or Angular or something, right?
Yeah, I think if you're using those other popular frameworks, then you're still in the npm, and you're doing some Node work and things like that. But it's funny how I don't do that these days, right? I moved away from Angular, and I've been working with like Blazor or just Web API and other stuff. And recently I was doing something, and I'm like, I had to do something with npm, and I was like, oh yeah, npm, right? Like I had.
You're like, it's back. It's back. So
Get packages and stuff like that. So it's cool.
Yep. All right. So let me get started. And so you can see I've got Node installed, npm installed, Git installed, Visual Studio Code is installed. We also have that guy. Do I have this right? Am I reading this correctly? That guy, Akashi, checking in. Awesome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoy what we're doing. We are just getting started. We are about to take our first steps to build a Visual Studio Code extension. So you can see I have Node, npm, and Git installed. I have Visual Studio Code installed. I don't happen to be in Windows tonight, but it doesn't matter. I just wanted to have some fun and do this in Linux. We could be doing this in Windows. We could be doing this on a Mac. Doesn't matter. So step one is just simply to run Yeoman. And what I'm going to do, though, is I have a folder here called source that I'm going to switch to. So I'm in my home folder /source. That's it. And I'm going to say yo code. And I'm going to maximize this so we get a good view here. And the Yeoman generator for Visual Studio Code comes up. And there is so much you can do in Visual Studio Code as far as extensibility. So you can create color themes. You can add support for new languages, make code snippets. We're going to create an extension. Now, we're actually going to use JavaScript for this extension. And I don't think it's really because I don't have anything against TypeScript. I don't really know TypeScript that well. I think you will find that the documentation kind of makes a little bit of an assumption. I think that you're going to use TypeScript, but I actually didn't find using JavaScript difficult at all. It actually let me explore a few things. So all I'm going to do is say I want a new extension, JavaScript. And then, so what's the name of your extension? Well, let's call it the Dev Talk Show. And then what's the identifier for your extension? And this, you ever look in the marketplace and an extension will have a name, and then underneath it'll say like, it might, maybe what people will do is kind of namespace it, and they'll put like the name of their company and then the name of the extension afterwards. You may have seen this before. You may not have. I suppose we could look in Visual Studio Code real quick, since we're going to be opening it anyway. And we could go to extensions.
It probably means that the name probably doesn't have to be unique, but the identifier probably does, right? Maybe it's one of those things, yeah.
So let's just take a look. Like here's the ESLint extension. And, you used to be able to see the name. And oddly enough, maybe it is still here and I'm just not seeing it. Oh, identifier right here. So this identifier, to your point, Andy, I believe does have to be unique, whereas you can, the name maybe doesn't have to.
You can have multiple things with the same name, right? Which is kind of weird, but,
Yeah.
Maybe you can. I don't remember. Yeah.
So let's just call it this. I don't have a good reason for calling it this, by the way. I don't. It just doesn't matter. Oh, invalid extension identifier. Whoops. Well, then what if we just call it? What if we just call it the Dev Talk Show? An extension.
Maybe it's all lowercase. I don't know. Did you have uppercase in there? I don't know if you did.
Yeah, I don't know. Do I want JavaScript type checking? I think I said. I don't know. Let's just say no. It doesn't matter. I don't really care if there's a Git repository. Which package manager do I want to use? I don't have Yarn installed, so let's stick with NPM. Now, what it does is it goes ahead and gets moving, and it runs NPM install for you to get, because this is a node project, so that means I got to get 10,000 files and who knows how many megs of support files. And then they say, now, are you ready to open it with code? And I'm going to say, yeah, let's go ahead and open it with code.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't need this other. I don't need this other one. So here it is.
This is VS Code running on Ubuntu.
No, I'm running in Linux Mint tonight. Running in Linux Mint.
Sorry, in Linux. Sorry, Linux. Yeah. But sorry, not in Windows, right?
Right, not in Windows.
It looks exactly the same.
Right. Yeah, not in Windows. So we start off. We get a project here.
Look at this. You got a whole bunch.
You get a no modules. You get a bunch of stuff. It's ready to go. Right. You get a README to kind of help you out, which is cool. Starts talking about some stuff. You get a package JSON, and this package JSON actually turns out to be where you declare how to wire things up to the editor, or you're telling the editor how you want things to be wired up is here in package JSON. We're going to come back here. And then the heart of the extension is in extension.js. Now, I'm not going to try and tell anybody that we're going to build a very cleanly architected extension, but I think I will point out when we're working that, hey, you would probably go put this in another module. Maybe if you're in TypeScript, you might put it in a class. If you're in JavaScript, you might put it in a class. Like whatever makes you happy. We just kind of want to get things working tonight, right?
Yeah, this is definitely a demo.
Yeah.
We're trying to show functionality, not necessarily best practices of JavaScript code development, right?
So what I think is really cool is that I haven't done anything other than run the Yeoman generator, and we can already debug, step into, and run this extension. They did a really good job with this, in my opinion. I love when stuff is ready to run. So if I go ahead, and in fact, the launch.json for this.
Look at that. I just noticed there's
it's already here. It already has a configuration to run the extension. It even has a configuration to run a test suite that you start to fill up. It's awesome.
Oh.
I can start to write unit tests in here. It's pretty cool.
That's practices, right? Unit tests. Yep.
So let's go ahead and run it. And it's going to open up Visual Studio Code.
Okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
Yep. I was wondering how it was going to run the extension in VS Code, but now I realize it starts a new, and it's called Extension Development Host.
Yep. Yep. That's correct. Okay. So what does this sample extension do? It adds a command to the command palette. That's what it does. So do you remember how to open the command palette? This is a keystroke I do remember.
Oh, God. It's something with a P. Well, is it the same on yeah, that's a VS Code thing, right? Isn't it like Control Shift P or something?
Control Shift P. Awesome. Awesome. I think people know that I say often that I'm not much of a keystroke. Like, I don't remember keystrokes as well as I'm about clicking, but I remember that one because it is so useful in Visual Studio Code. So the extension creates a command called Hello World. That's all it does. And here's that command. Yeah, here's that command. It's pretty original, like you said. So what happens when I run that command? Well, I'm going to click on it. We're going to find out. It threw up a little notification, Hello World from the Dev Talk Show, the name of the extension. That's it.
All right.
That's all it did.
Works.
So thanks, everybody, for hanging... Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us. No. That's all. So, but let's take a look at some things that I think are kind of interesting. I'm gonna this time I'm gonna do this a lot of different ways so you can see how I think the experience is pretty good. I'm gonna close the extension development host and we drop right out of debugging mode, which is cool. I think that's cool.
That's cool. How is that synced up? I mean, I honestly, I have no idea, but that's cool.
And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set a breakpoint here. And I'm going to set a breakpoint here in the activate function. And we're going to talk a little bit about how your extension gets activated. So I'm going to run it again.
Sort of like a life cycle? Is that like a life cycle kind of thing?
There is a life cycle for extensions. That's a great way of thinking of it. So the reason why there's a life cycle, it's probably, once I say it, you'll be like, think about how many extensions someone might have installed in Visual Studio Code. You might have dozens. So you may have already noticed we haven't hit that breakpoint because this extension has not been activated.
I did see something when you switched over to that other VS Code. I did see something at the bottom that said something like activating extensions. Or did you see that, like at the bottom there? It said something.
I think it might have been activating this extension, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was, right?
The only reason why I say that is because we have not hit this breakpoint yet in function activate. And it's because when you build your extension, you want to be as good of a citizen as you can be about activation. And if your extension is about making life better when someone is editing an image, then you don't need to activate until someone's editing an image. Some extensions can't be so choosy. The folks who make GitLens or GitGraph, something that, I mean, that's going to be, people want to use that all the time. So they probably activate much more quickly and they kind of stay alive for the long haul because, hey, this is like a core thing that you want. And we'll talk about other ways to activate. But the reason I wanted to show this is I've set a breakpoint here in the activate function, which the comments tell us this method is called when your extension is activated the very first time, right? So let's go and find that command again. Hello world.
It's interesting that the command exists even though the extension isn't active.
Yeah.
Right?
Because and we'll get to see that.
You see it right on the screen there.
Yeah, we'll get to see that. We get to declaratively, it's called contributing. We contribute a command. So Visual Studio Code knows about it, but it doesn't yet care about the code to run. It's like, I know what to do when someone picks it. So now I'm going to click it, and boom, we hit the breakpoint.
Nice.
So you'll recognize this informational message, hello world from the Dev Talk Show. You'll recognize that. That showed up earlier. But what you may not have we didn't see is look at this console.log. Congratulations, your extension is now active. We're going to see now where that's written. So you get support for some debugging right here in the debug console, not in the extension host, but in our environment that we're coding in. So I'm going to go ahead and step over this.
Right.
And there it is.
Hang on, that was good.
Bam.
There's 2 Visual Studio codes running here.
Yep.
The debugging one is
right.
where we're debugging, and that's where we're going to see the console stuff, right?
Yep.
But when a user is using the extension, they're not going to get that. At least
that's
not the
right.
way that's written right now. Right?
That's right. It won't
that's
be.
Cool.
Yeah. So here's a way for you to console log while you're working, but it's not. It's to keep it out of the hands of the person. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. It's not going to bother anything here.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. So I'm going to step over one more time and, display the message box to the user. It may have. Let me Okay.
So quickly we didn't.
Yeah. So what happened? It actually.
Though. Congratulations, right?
It actually probably. Yeah. There it is. Hello world from the Dev Talk Show. So let's go over this little bit of code here. What probably wasn't super obvious is you said, well, hey, I didn't really see us step into this. The reason why is because look what's really happening here. What's actually happening is we are not running this. We are registering a command. So the activate method is saying, okay, I'm going to now tell you what to do. When somebody runs this command, you should do this. Well, so the command gets registered and then very quickly executed, because that's what Visual Studio Code is doing. Is it's saying, somebody has met the requirements to activate this extension. So let me activate it. After it's activated, let me now follow through with the event that they were trying to fire, which is the devtalkshow.helloworld command. Is that a little bit too mind-bending, or does that make sense? When I push this button, that command fires. So I can now set a breakpoint here. I could have done this before. And when I run that command again and again, we're going to see, hit the breakpoint, go through it. There it is.
But you're not hitting the breakpoint. You're not hitting the first breakpoint, which is right, because that's already happened.
We're not actually.
You're within this command code.
We're not in the activate function. Right. We are running this anonymous function that was registered.
Yes.
Here's what you do when somebody wants hello world. Now, do you have to put this code here? No. You are going to have to register commands in activate, but whether you have this call another module and that module knows how to register commands, that's one thing you could do. Or you could register commands here, but all of these functions for what to do, they could be somewhere else so that your code's nice and clean.
Right.
You're going to see that I'm not going to do that so much tonight, and that's so that we keep obvious with how things work.
And like we said earlier, those are JavaScript features, so to speak, right? Of how you would do that. And there's a lot of ways you could do it in JavaScript, but we're really talking about the extension building, not JavaScript tonight. So I think that's a good way to segregate those two things,
Right. So let's take a look real quick, because this activate function got called, but it's not clear here. Why did Visual Studio Code, what about this extension told Visual Studio Code that this command should activate the function? The answer lies in the package JSON. So here is the package JSON, and your eye may have already been drawn to it, but down here on line 12, by default, out of the box, we've got an array activation events. And we have told it, when somebody runs the command, the dev talk show hello world, activate the extension. So this is how we got that done. Here is how we contributed the extension. I used that word contributed earlier. We contributed a command to Visual Studio Code. If I and you can see the commands is an array. So if I'm going to clean this up a little bit when I say clean it up, I'm basically going to make it so that we can add another command. And I'm going to really
okay.
cheese this out and just be like, hey, let's do the exact same thing. And that's just so we can see this happen very quickly. And instead of the title being Hello World, let's have Hello World 2. And so now I have 2 commands contributed.
But they both have the same command.
Yeah. Well,
one is a different
actually,
title,
you're right.
But they have the same command. Yeah.
You're right that I need to give it a different identifier. That was correct. Okay. So let's do that, and then let's go ahead and make it an activation event as well. So that way, no matter which command you use, you activate the extension. I mean, I suppose I don't. Yeah.
So if you didn't have that no, I'm just thinking that through.
Yeah.
Right? So if Hello World 2 wasn't an activation command, you'd probably have to run Hello World before you ran Hello World 2.
That's right. That's right.
The one doesn't activate it, but that's cool. Yeah.
We need a command.
And there might be some good use cases why you want to do that, right?
Right. You're right. Definitely. So we need a command now, right? So we're gonna have to go back here and register something. So let's go ahead and do that. Now they said let disposable equal, and I think what they were trying to say there is that you're going to push this command into the context subscriptions, but you know you're not going to need that variable later. I think that's why they called it that, was to try to signal to you that you're never going to need this variable again. You just need it for the purposes of pushing the subscription, right? So what did we call it?
It's almost like that. What do you call that underscore thing that we use?
Oh, like a discard. Yeah.
Discard. Yeah. Okay. So you're just doing the same thing, just changing a message a little bit.
Yeah. And I changed the command name. So the message is different. As far as I'm concerned, the name, I never did close off the other extension, but that's okay. The name of the title of the command is Hello World 2.
Mm-hmm.
So if I run this now, what I should be able to do is I should be able to say, let's do Control-Shift-P and let's type hello, and look at there's 2
Look, there commands. It is. It's still there. It knows about it.
Yeah, so I'm going to click on Hello World 2, and here it is, our second Hello World from the Dev Talk Show.
So listen, first impressions.
Yeah.
Right? This is a very easy getting started experience. Right?
Cool.
Now, I don't know about packaging it up and redistributing it or any of that stuff. You know, we haven't gotten that far.
Right.
In terms of just having something work, that's pretty easy.
Yeah. It's a good start, right?
From a debugging experience, right?
Yeah, it's a good start. I agree with you. That's how I felt too. So wouldn't it be wonderful if all we ever had to do was create commands? And there are a lot of extensions that are great for that. Things that we're not talking about here is registering keyboard shortcuts for your command. You could do that. Registering right-click menus that could also bring your command up in certain context situations. Like I think you've talked about, Andy, having the ability to add a class. Like there's no reason we couldn't have an extension that fired up when you were in a C# project, and then if you right-clicked in the file menu to say, oh, let's get that command into the right click, into the context menu. Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah, and we've seen other extensions that do it. So we know that we can do that.
Right.
But we could write the same extension even if we're just using the command palette for now. Like it's the same concept of the extension is the same.
That's true. You know? And in fact, I think what isn't going to be shown too well tonight is a lot of times I got started by doing just what you said. It's like, look, it's easy to register a command. Let me just see how something works. And then I switched over. We are going to take a quick peek at, there are actually many ways to extend Visual Studio Code. You can extend the editor. You can extend what they call the language server, which is basically the way, language server sounds like it's going out and talking to something, but it's really not. It's about letting the Visual Studio client send you information about the code being written so that you can like parse it, look through it, lint it, and then put up the beautiful little squigglies that we're all used to seeing, like just in time. Oh, this is going to be an error when you compile, stuff like that. what we're
Yeah.
going to look at first is this. When I minimize and maximize this in the Explorer, this is called the Explorer.
Hmm.
These are called tree views. Outline, timeline, and the Dev Talk Show. These are tree views. Maybe not a surprise, but that's what they're called. The tree views have items. Now we can add our own tree views.
Oh,
So
nice.
on the left-hand side, this is called the activity bar in Visual Studio Code. And this activity is called Explorer. This is called Source Control. It's actually called SCM in the code. This is the debug activity, and this is the extensions activity. So what we're going to do, just not because this is super useful, just so we can see how to do it, we're going to add a tree view to this Explorer activity. We're going to add our own custom
Cool.
tree view.
Yeah, and a lot of extensions have those activities as well, right? That higher level node that you were talking about. So this is pretty useful stuff, I think, in the extension world.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you just got to start with something. So that's what we're gonna
Yeah,
do.
you know what else? I do have a question, and
Yeah.
maybe you haven't gotten there. I don't want to derail you,
No.
but what I noticed is a lot of extensions. They don't build a UI, right? What they do is they use the command to continue to prompt you. So, like in other words, in our thing, we could have something that says "Hello World 2," and it would prompt you to give it some other input, and then we could output that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen that where so
I bet that's not hard to do. I'm just
your
saying, you know.
commands can bring up like a dialogue with a input window, and then you can get the result of that input. You can absolutely do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me make sure that I do this right here. We're going to go. We're in the Visual Studio Code editor that's editing the extension. We're going to go to the package JSON, and we're going to contribute again. But this is a new kind of contribution. This is contributing a view. So let me get my notes here to make sure that I've. Okay, cool. So we've contributed commands. Let's contribute a view. So I've got commands nice and neat there. In package JSON, what I do is I start another like object here. This is called views, meaning I need to put it in quotes.
Nice. Right.
So I'm going to contribute a view of some kind. There's multiple types of views, by the way, but for now we're just going to do a tree view. So I open this up as an object, and I say, I want to contribute a view into the Explorer activity. And this since there could be one or more, this is another array. I didn't hear what you said there, Andy.
No, I just said, "Oh wow, yeah." I see the way it goes. Like I could get it. Like it makes sense.
The ID of that activity I'm going to make up, and let's call it. Let's just call it PDTS. I think that should be okay, just that. And the ID is something I can refer to it by in code. And the name is what the viewer's going to see. And because, and I'm actually going to go ahead and say like the Dev Talk Show extension, something obvious, so we'll know it when we see it.
Yeah, good idea.
Not because that's what I would really do in the final product, but we'll know it when we see it now. Let's see, do I have to do anything else? I don't believe so. I believe that'll contribute the view. In fact, I actually think this may not be super useful, but I think I could run it. And in the Explorer view, yep, here it is, the Dev Talk Show extension. So that was pretty cool.
Taking over the world, man.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Now, here's the thing.
Ship it. People that are viewing now. I mean, this is going to be hot off the presses. You want to install this extension. This is pretty impressive. Look at the features that were delivered to VS Code and making it better.
Yeah. So I've contributed to the Explorer view, but what you may not have noticed is see how the breakpoint is still gray? the extension has still not been activated.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll come back to that. I
Because you
actually
didn't run the
want
command. I knew it wasn't activated because you didn't run the command.
right. But because the package JSON is just describing like it's describing declaratively what the extension will do, it goes ahead and puts up this little bit of UI. There are things you can do to contribute this. Either you can contribute in code so that basically you say to yourself, what happens in this bar is dynamic, so I can't just, I don't know what these things are going to be called. So you can add views dynamically. You can do that. I could have also added it like hidden, and then in the activation, we could fire it up. But that's stuff that we can all look up and work on, I think, another time. But so what's interesting is we have not activated the extension, and I'm going to leave it that way for a little bit because I think that's going to become important. We need to do more with this. We need to, obviously we want to do more than just that. Well, for one thing I'd like to show you is if I don't do anything more than change this from Explorer to Debug and run that.
Okay.
Can you guess where it's going to move the tree view?
I can.
Yeah. It's not going to be here in Explorer. It's going to be down here in Run and Debug. Here it is.
God, that's just so...
It's easy.
Flexible.
Yeah. It's easy. It's cool.
It almost makes it sound... Now, I don't know if those are the ones that are there by default. But
yeah.
If you had a different extension open, would you be able to put it into someone else's extension?
So I think
you could add your own activity.
Yeah. So I think the answer is that yes, you could. As long as we don't run too long, we are going to add our own activity. There's like an evolution of this.
Sure.
The 4 that you can contribute to by default are Explorer, Debug, so not Search, Explorer, Debug, SCM, that you put SCM to contribute here into this one, and then Test, which is not up here. But that's okay. I don't know what activates the test extension, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So, why is this? This is struggling for some. Oh, I wonder.
Uh-oh.
Oh, look at this. Window might not be busy. I don't want to terminate this. I don't want that anymore. Oh, look, it blew up. Boom, gone. All right. No big deal. No big deal.
Was that VS Code blowing up because we were debugging so long or something? I don't know.
That's the first time that's happened to me, actually. The whole time that I was working on this and everything, it was fine. So in any case, here we go. We know we can go into the debug view, but let's do a little bit more now. Let's start filling out that debug view. So we'll go back to the extension, and what we're going to do is again, we might write this code somewhere else, but we're going to register what's called a tree data provider, which is really just some information about what to do when somebody interacts with a tree view that you've added. So it's kind of interesting. Basically, the way Visual Studio Code thinks about it is it says, I'll put the tree view in place, and then when somebody actually clicks on it to visualize the data, I'm going to ask you what to put there. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So let's go ahead and register that in here. Would you really do that? You'd probably write some other. You'd probably move it somewhere else. I actually found that the IntelliSense here was incredibly helpful. Almost everything is in the VS Code namespace. So you say VS Code.window.register tree data provider. Look
at all this stuff that's here. You're right. Yeah. There's a lot going on. Yeah.
I found it kind of one way to learn about what you could do. I actually found just by starting to type register and then saying, "Oh wow, look at this other stuff," and then you go look it up. You go search for what it does. So register tree data provider is a function. So when I open up the parentheses, it tells me, well, here are the parameters you need. You need to pass me a string with the view ID, and I called it TDTS, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to give me a tree data provider object. So, it turns out that a tree data provider object, there's many ways that you can do this. I could say, I believe I can say new tree data provider. Am I right about that? Okay, well, if that's not going to work, that's fine. In the documentation, it'll show you that a tree data provider is an object that has at least a couple of functions in it. One of them is get tree item to say like, hey, what do you want to do when somebody clicks on this? And one of them is get
just
children.
Like duck typing, like as long as it has those
well, methods. JavaScript, right? That's JavaScript, right? Is duck typing works.
Exactly.
I think though, I'm trying to think. I think I can say. Can I say new VS Code dot tree view item?
Tree provider tree.
It might be tree item.
Item.
That might work, but I'm gonna stick with what I know works, which is let's pass in an object, and that object's going to have a function called a function that in the object is get tree item. At least it's keyed to that. The function takes an element, so it passes you the element, and it says, can you return me what I should display? And because we're actually not going to go out and get any data, I don't have to do anything more than just say like, look, it's fine, don't worry about it. I don't. What you would really do here is you would figure out what to fill this up with. Maybe you would call an API. Maybe you would. It just depends on what your.
You could have an in-memory list of types of fruit or something like that, and just put them in the tree view if you wanted to, right?
Yeah, I could. Well, that's what I'm going to do now. Is the tree? What I'm going to do is I'm going to say when somebody clicks on the tree item, just return it. I don't have anything special to do. But when they decide to expand it and you want to show the children, let's show them some hard-coded children instead of actually going out to do anything. So I'm going to say when Visual Studio Code wants to know what the children of the tree view are, let me quickly hard code up some tree items. And let's just say child item 1.
Yeah.
And what I get to do now is I get to give it, what's the state of this item? Could it be expanded or collapsed? I'm going to say that this is, like, it's the difference between in a file structure. A directory can be expanded, but a file can't be, right? So, at least generally speaking. So I'm going to say, no, you can't expand this item further. This is just it's just a one-time thing. So, that's interesting that it's complaining me about this. Oh, it's just saying that you're not using it. I guess I can also.
I think you're just not done yet.
Yeah, I'm not done yet. Let's create another one, child 2. And you were saying earlier about duck typing, like this is just JavaScript. So it turns out that tree items, if I really didn't want to, I'm going to use this VS Code tree item object. But if I really didn't want to, I could build the object myself and it would work.
Yeah.
Because it's JavaScript. But let's see if I can build a second one here. Child. That's interesting. I may come back and do another one. Because there's something specific I want to show, and I wonder if this is. I wonder if if you have to do this. Oh no, there's multiple types of these. Collapsible state. Okay. And then for this one, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say collapsible state is none. And that's it. I've just got a couple of these, nothing special.
Okay.
And then
Now, do you need to put them into a collection or something like that, or
oh, whoops.
because you have that let?
Yeah, I do. So I need to say I'm going to return.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to resolve because this is called asynchronously. And the reason it's called asynchronously is I might go out and hit an API or something, and they don't want the UI to get hosed up. So what I'm doing now is I'm returning an array of what belongs in this tree. What are the children that belong in this tree? This is going to make so much more sense when you see it. And I'm saying the tree is filled with child 1.
It makes sense already. Honestly, I think it makes sense already.
What else needs to go in here? What am I doing?
Is there a third method? I thought you said there was 3 methods you needed to have. Maybe I misunderstood that, but I thought you said 3.
No, I think this is it. I think what I've done now is I've got something for when Visual Studio asks me, what do I do when somebody clicks to expand it? I'm going to say, show these children.
Okay.
I could theoretically
if you click on one of those items. If you clicked on one of them,
yeah,
would that execute the get tree item function, which just does nothing? Is that right?
Let's breakpoint it so we can see.
Okay. Yeah,
I don't want to breakpoint this for now, but we'll breakpoint that. All right.
Okay.
So let's run it. Now, I very specifically, I kind of did this on purpose. So our extension is here in the debug area, but there's like nothing going on. And if I click it, nothing's happening. And we talked about this earlier, except you may have already forgotten. How do you activate this extension?
Yeah.
You run a command. You
still have to write that. You still have to use the command palette, right?
For now.
For whatever reason. I mean, yeah.
We'll fix this, but let's activate the extension. So now, yeah, we go through this stuff. Everything gets registered. Oh, it's actually saying now.
Yeah.
Well, now that it's activated, let's get the tree items going. I need to see it, so let's see what it looks like. Here it is. Child item 1, child item 2. If I collapse this, nothing happens. If I expand it, nothing really going on. But get tree item was called to basically say, hey, tell me what I should know about this. Does something happen when you right click it? Does something happen when you and I don't have anything special going on. I just have that. That's it. Not that
but
special.
If you click child item 1, that doesn't trigger that other method, that get whatever that was.
No.
Get tree item.
And it's because I would have to register some stuff to do, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
I will say this. So far I understand everything, but I'm not quite sure I understand what the get tree item thing does. Like, what would you put in that?
So get tree item, according to the documentation,
there must be a reason. Is that for formatting or something like that?
Well, it says implement this to return the UI representation of the element that gets displayed in the view. So
yeah,
and get children says to return the children for the given element or the root if no element is passed. So I took the easy way out and just said, here, just plop this in there no matter what, right?
Yeah, you returned E, right?
Yeah. I imagine, let me think, I suppose, I'm trying to think what code we could write in the get tree
What if you just
item.
do me a favor? What if you went back to the code?
Okay.
Right? And instead of doing return E, you said return E concat to hello E or something like that. You know what I mean? Like that. I was just wondering, is it like a formatting thing where you can just change what you want it to display? Like, what if this list of children had like 6 values in each one of them, right? Like a complex property. I think is that what this is for? Like instead of child item on line 19, child item 1, could that be an object of some sort? With multiple properties, and then you'd say,
let me think about.
Well, that's just because it's JavaScript. It's throwing it in there.
I'm trying to think.
He doesn't seem to have any.
trying to think about what I can do. I
Like
feel
what
like what
is
I could
E?
do is I think I can say that this has another tree um built in. Like, can't I say, well, if it's the root element, then there isn't anything to do. But oh, whoops. Of what I would use
Maybe we
this.
don't need to worry about this just now because I don't think this is where you were planning on going, right? I'm just
Yeah,
asking
I
questions.
hear what you're saying. I think it's a good question. I'm trying to think of what I would use it for. Like, I'm partially thinking that, for example, what I'm thinking is that some kind of dev talk show extension, if there was a use for one, what it might do is it might make a call to some API so that it can find out, it can show here are the shows, like it's the list of the shows, and you could click on one, and then in this editor view it might show you information about the show, and maybe it would render the YouTube video. I don't know.
It's what everyone needs in their VS
Yeah,
Code is be able
yeah,
to watch the dev talk
you need a
show,
dev
but it's
talk show,
cool,
right?
right?
I agree with you, and
A lot
you
of
know what
people have
might
been
be
asking for
interesting
that,
is
by the way.
what might be interesting is that we could come back to this and implement some of this stuff and then go over like how we did it.
Yeah.
I think that would make a lot of sense. So for now, what I want to do is I would like this to activate. I would like it to go ahead and activate when it's been opened, instead of having to wait for some other command to be run, because that doesn't make any sense. Why should I have to wait for another command? You know, that happens in package JSON, because in package JSON we have this activation events. So we're going to add another one that says on view, and when the TDTS view, it becomes active. Oops, not of view, on view. When the TDTS view becomes active, then activate the extension.
Does that mean active as soon as it shows up or as soon as you click on it?
That we're going to see. See. So we open, we're in the Explorer view. Nothing's activated yet. In fact, let's go ahead and drop the breakpoint in so we know. Hasn't activated yet. Okay, accidentally. Okay. Let's go down to that debug view. Still has not activated yet.
Right. Got
now,
it's there, but it hasn't been activated yet.
Here it goes.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
It's like, hey,
that's great.
I need to know what's going on now. So it fills this stuff in.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I would like to be able to think about, so each of these children could also be a tree if we had collapsible state on.
Yep.
Then it could have its own children, in which case you would have to provide some registration for what do you do for its children, because maybe it's not the exact same thing, right? In a file system.
So if you actually made those things expandable right now,
right,
would each one of them get a child 1 and a child 2? Like, would it just be incestuous and just keep calling get children on themselves?
I think I'd have to register a method here to tell it what this child's get children method does.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's only the get children for the first node right now.
Yeah.
The root node.
Right. I believe that's correct. I could be wrong about it, but I wanted to show you a little hack that I'm not 100% sure if there's another way to do this, but I'm going to create another child, a child 3. And this time I'm going to kind of do what I was threatening to do before. Is I'm going to go ahead and build this object like myself, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Oops. At least I was going to.
What happened? You freeze? Something like that?
Well, my notes went away.
Uh-oh.
That's okay.
Cheat sheet.
We're all right. So in here, okay. And what we're gonna do is we're going to go ahead and build an object that has some elements, and one of them is going to be label, and this is going to be child item 3, and I need to give it a collapsible state.
Hang on. Does label need to be in quotes? No, I guess it doesn't, right?
No, it doesn't.
This isn't. No, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Because this isn't exactly like JSON. This is I wonder if I can say
Yeah, I got confused for a second. We were in JSON before, that's what I was thinking about.
I think I can do this. I think that's the same. I think it's just an enum that is a 0. Yeah, it is. Just an enum that's a 0. So I could also, instead of doing this, I could also just put 0. Yep.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that I wanted, and I couldn't figure out how to do this using the newed up object, is I wanted to pass a tooltip object, and the tooltip object itself is more, it's another JavaScript object.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I personally found this to be cool. Because I saw other objects do this, and I said, how do I do this? And so now let's add this to the list. But let's go one better. I'm actually going to add a child 1. I'm going to add another child 2. I'm going to add another child 2. I'm going to add a child 3, just so we can have a bigger list.
Okay.
It's not for any particular reason. So now let's run it. I created a third child. The whole point of this is to show you the tooltip stuff, which I thought was really neat. I really liked it. Okay, we're activating.
There was like a spinner on your. Okay.
Yeah, it was activating the extension.
I didn't notice it. Yeah.
So by default, you get a tooltip that's just whatever the item's label is. But if you override the tooltip property, you could put whatever you want. And the markdown stuff works. So, in Markdown, asterisks is italicized.
Yeah.
So you get that. And then now
you couldn't do Markdown in the actual, where it says child item 1, like in the node.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe you can.
You can't do. Maybe you can. Yeah.
You want to try it?
Well, I don't know if it's. Yeah, it's just a string, so maybe it takes Markdown. I don't know. Let's
try it. Let's do. That should be bold, right? 2 of them, I think. Yeah. I forget. I don't know. So. Maybe it does. Maybe it does just what you said, because that would be cool. We're gonna find out really quick.
Breakpoint.
Get through the breakpoint to activate the extension. I guess I could get rid of those breakpoints. No, it didn't do it. Didn't do it. Yeah.
Okay, it's worth a try.
Yeah. Well, that's why we do the show, right? Because you'll come up with ideas, or I'll come up with ideas when you're working, and it'll say, like, let's just try it. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? It doesn't work. So
people are gonna hang up on us and tune out. Oh, look at all the viewers are just leaving right now. They're just like, that was ridiculous.
That didn't do anything. So
didn't do anything. We're out of here. Right?
So the other thing that I explored after this is I said, okay, this is cool that I added to someone else's activity. Like, that's cool. But I want a dev talk show button on this thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's see, before we run out of time tonight, if we can get that done. So what I learned is that you can add like basically a graphic to be displayed, but the Visual Studio Code wants it to be an SVG. That actually makes sense to me.
Yeah, I'm just
yeah, so that it looks nice, right?
Yep.
No matter the form factor, no matter the device, an SVG can be nice and scaled. Where if they gave you if they said like, hey, give us bitmaps, they'd probably say like, you got to give us 50,000 different sizes and whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah, right. And then you get problems with resolution and all that kind of stuff, for
yeah.
different things. So like this is cool. Yeah.
So I'm creating a folder that I'm calling media. It doesn't have to be called media. That's just what I'm calling it. And I am going to show you that we have something that I created today. We have our very own SVG version of the Dev Talk Show logo.
I love it.
This is its debut. How did I create it?
This is getting exciting.
I created it using
bumming, man.
Oh yeah, Rich is going to be like, "What?" I tried, and no disrespect to SVG Creator. I want to make it clear that I don't. It just didn't work, and I don't really. It's not that important to me. I ended up using a different site. I'm trying to think what site did convert it for me. Oh, I have it in a note
We'll look
here.
in your history, I guess, later if you want.
Yeah, I have it in a note too. Here it was. It was this one.
It's an SVG converter to the. Oh no, that's the one you're on right now, right?
Well, you see, and I don't want to disparage this. I don't know why, but for some reason it took this and it just made it blank. And I even downloaded it and it didn't work. And whatever. I don't care. It's probably great. So what I did is I came here and I said upload a picture, and I've got our logo here. This is just our typical logo. Oh, actually, no, here it is. Here's our logo. Let's use that. And it said, here you go. It's like, yeah, here you go. So I downloaded this, so and cool. That's it. So I didn't do any work. I just said, here, somebody on the web figure this out for me.
I love it. Yeah.
So now the question is, how do I add that? It's where you would expect it to be, I think, after watching the show for a little bit, is in the package JSON. We're going to say how to do this, right? So what we're going to do is we are going to make a few changes here. We originally said TDTS is a view that lives inside the debug activity. But that's not true anymore. It's not going to live in the debug activity. It's going to live in a new place. And we have to tell Visual Studio Code about its own place to live called a views container. We have to basically tell it, this view is going to live in a views container, and then we're going to tell Visual Studio Code that views container is on the activity bar. So it's a two-step process for this particular, well, you're going to see right now. I'm declaring a views container on the activity bar. I actually don't know if there's any other type of views container that you can use. I really don't.
I was going to say that it kind of implies that there's other places you could put it, but maybe not, right?
Maybe for extensibility purposes, oh, we'll look at panel. That actually probably is down here. So maybe you could do other cool stuff, but I don't know anything about that right now. So we're going to tell it about this activity bar. This activity bar's, I just want to double check that the names. Yeah, okay. So this activity bar, we're going to have to change some names a little bit.
Oh, look at this. It gives you the info right there.
Yeah. Oh, whoops. You're right. I have to give it an ID. And because this is JSON, I got to put it in quotes. Yeah. And we're going to call this the TDTS activity.
I find this really annoying. I find the JSON stuff so annoying, but it's okay.
The name of this is going to be the Dev Talk Show. That's the friendly name that people see. Then we get to tell it where the icon is. This is the part that I think is cool. Where we're like, it's in media, and it's tdts.s. And we're going to give it one more thing called a contextual title, which is basically just what the user sees. And let's put I don't want it to be obvious that this is different. Just so that we can tell the difference between these different items. So we'll put that, even if it looks a little silly, we'll do that. Okay. So we have now declared that on the activity bar there is a new activity with this icon. So we have to change up the view a little bit now. And instead, what we're going to do is we're going to say we have a view in the TDTS activity container. So instead of being in
Okay.
debug or explorer, it's in our container. And the ID of that
That
view
makes
is
sense.
TDTS, and this is its name. If I remember correctly, I don't know why this is, but in my notes I have that I still added the icon in the view.
No, I don't know. That doesn't
Okay,
make sense,
actually, I
but
take it
maybe.
back. I get it now. The icon is in both places. Maybe what we'll do is we'll take it out after we get this working and see if I doubled up on accident. That's always possible. So I'm looking at my notes now, and this contextual title is down here in the view. Human readable
Okay.
context for when the view is moved out of its original location. Oh, that's an interest. I get it. I get it. And then here it's passed to the container icon, the name, the ID.
You do have a squiggly. I don't know if you saw that. You have a squiggly there at the underneath activity bar. Oh, I think you just fixed it. It
Yeah.
knew that you
So
had
I
something
was
spelled wrong.
wrong about it being name. You're
Oh,
right. It checked it against
okay.
schema and said that was wrong. So that was supposed to be title. Human readable string to render the container. Unique ID used to
I love the
identify it.
tooltips.
Oh, I know,
Wow.
isn't it cool? Path to the container
Yeah.
icon. Recommended the icon is an SVG. The identifier of the view, and then it even tells you what API to use. Like, and then it even is like, oh, by the way, you can trigger your extension by registering the event. Like, it's how cool is that? So this is everything I have
Pretty good.
in my notes. Let me double check that there's nothing else. We're activating it the same way. All of that changed. All of that's the same. I actually don't know if I have to do anything else. I know that might seem weird, but we're just declaratively
Ship
moving
it.
around.
Ship it.
Yeah,
Ship it.
it might be.
Ship it.
Might be. I'm just double checking. I think so, yeah. So let's just run it. And if we're wrong, we're going to know very quickly.
I gotta say, this makes for like a good demo. Like, this
So
is
look at
cool.
this.
Look
Look
at
at
there it
that.
is. It's a little small, but still,
It
that's
is,
pretty
yeah.
cool. I guess probably would scale that a little differently or something like that. I don't know. Yeah.
So there's the Dev Talk Show's very own activity. If I click on it, the
Yep.
extension activates, and all this stuff happens, and we now have our own Dev Talk Show view, and you can click on this, and I think you can even do interesting things like move this uh, over here. So see how I can like move it around? I don't know why I would
Yeah.
do
Oh,
this.
look, you dragged it out of that.
And here's
And
that.
that's where it gets that other title.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. I don't know why, but
Like
that's
I don't
okay
know,
because it has both of them.
like I don't know who would want to do who would want to do that, but it's pulling that
Can you do
title.
that with other extensions? Can all
Oh,
extensions be moved around? I did not know you
well,
could do
look,
that.
it's not moving. It's not moving. See
Oh,
that?
okay. Maybe only certain ones can be moved. Try moving search or yeah, maybe some of them. Well, those are the default ones. Maybe you can only move the custom added on ones. Like if
Right.
you loaded somebody else's extension, maybe you could drag that. I don't know.
I wonder if I can tell it that mine's not movable.
That's cool.
So there's lots of things I could do now, which we're not really going to get to. Is like what I could do is I could have the Dev Talk Show extension show you a list of shows, and then when you click on a show, it could open an editor tab, and I could fill in the editor tab with information, right? Um, but that would basically be like firing up a view, um, and I haven't gotten that far. There are all kinds of different views in here. Let's take a look at the extension guides real quick when we look at the docs. So let's see. Let's just go to Visual Studio Code extension guides. Guides. So we were working with a tree view, which is just one thing you can do. So you could basically create your tree view and you could put whatever data you want in here, and they have an example, and then they say, oh, here's an example and here's how you register it, and you can update data as people click on things or whatever. So you can also have what's called a web view, which is basically a fully customizable view in Visual Studio Code. You could make it that when the editor tab opens, it would look totally custom. And we've seen this before. We've seen web views if we do something like an extension like the Git graph, I believe, where it shows you the Git repository in a graph form.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure that this, once it's installed, oh, I'm not in a repository.
You're not in a repo.
Yeah.
I guess you can initialize one real quick, but
I could. I can also open up Visual Studio Code in a place where I already know I have repos.
Yeah.
So let me do that real quick. Let me open folder. Let's go to here. And do I have Git graph? I do. I have Git lens. I have Git graph. Yep. Oh, it didn't work. Different folder. Last week we were working. Do I have anything? I thought I just did.
Look at that. Yep.
Let's get lens.
Oh.
So I'm pretty sure that this is a web view. Whoops. Oh, I closed it like a dummy.
It just closed the wrong window. That's all right. We get the idea.
Yeah, so I think that's a web view. So, what we could do is we could keep going and we could say, hey, let's now make it so that when somebody clicks on the child item, that it opens an editor tab. And that editor tab, when that editor tab is opened, it's a web view, right? You can do all of that. I'm not sure how easy that is to do quickly, but that's basically like the next steps of this.
Yeah, I think that the getting started on this is a good experience, right? And I think that there's documentation that show other things. Custom editors. I'm looking at the docs here. There's custom editors, task providers, source code. There's a lot of stuff you could do. I think it's probably. I'm just looking to see about right click. I wonder where that stuff is. Maybe that's all under tree view.
I think what you would do is you would register in your child item. I think you have to tell it like, hey, here's what happens when somebody clicks on this tree item, essentially. I don't know if that's hard to do.
Yeah, I was thinking about adding context menu to something else, but.
Oh, yeah. So I get what you're saying. You're saying, in fact, a lot of extensions do this. We know this. Is you want to be able to say, I want to hook into the file explorer, and when somebody right clicks on a JS file, I want to add something to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's all.
There's a way to do it all.
Yeah, I know that that's doable. You basically add a command, but you've got to tell it. You got to tell it where and how and how do you register it.
It's a command, but it's not a command palette command.
Right.
It's a command that lives sort of somewhere else, right? So all right, so I have a question for you, and I believe it's out of scope. Like, we're not going to do this now.
Yeah.
But have you looked at the experience of actually packaging this thing up And like, in other words, like, okay, great, we're playing around here. If we wanted to ship this thing, does it cost you $400 to buy a store certificate? And then you know what I mean, like that kind of like, what do you know about that?
So I don't believe that there is any cost. I'm pretty sure that what happens is you you package it up, and the instructions will tell you that they actually have an npm package to install a command line thing, and it's called VSCE. And VSCE you can use to package the extension, and you can even use it to publish the extension. And then what happens is
Okay.
the only thing that they won't do is, I believe that there are a few things that they will not take without, like, I don't know how you do certain things. The SVG that I wanted to add, I could not publish that because it's my own SVG file. So my question kind of is like, well then, how do I get that approved? And I don't know the answer to that.
Oh,
Basically they
that's
have,
interesting.
yeah, you know why, is they don't want people to get funny with,
I could go up there and put like the Git logo on something, or I could do whatever I wanted,
yeah,
right? They don't want
people would
people
turn
like
it into like
impersonating.
funny haha, yeah, you know.
Yeah, right.
You do have to do some things over on the Visual Studio Marketplace. You basically create an organization in I think you have to create an Azure DevOps organization, which you can do for free. Like, you don't have to, it's not like you have to pay for any of this. But the reason why I think that is because I think you create tokens in there and then publish it out. You get like a
Okay.
dashboard to review your ratings and review how many people are installing it and stuff. So it's not like you're left out in the cold. You actually get like some reports about how it's doing, which is kind of cool.
That's
You can
cool.
pull it. You can do, but I haven't done it. I would like to, and even though it sounds silly, like, oh, who wants a dev talk show I think what would be useful is if we completed it, put the code up on GitHub, and then said, hey, try it for yourself, but here's where you get the code. You can learn, watch the episodes, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah,
I think there's
I
some value
agree.
there.
I think this would be fun to dive into a little further and add something that really can do things. Um, I wonder what limits there are from a security aspect of what you can do. I mean, it's JavaScript, right? So I guess any JavaScript that I want to write in this thing, I can make um, like an HTTP request from JavaScript here, right?
Right. Yep.
Can I load JavaScript libraries, third-party libraries into my JavaScript and things like that if I wanted to do that? I wonder.
So you can, because um, I can't. Unfortunately, this is for work, so I can't talk too much about what it does. But I do know of an internal extension that makes it uses HTTP features like you're talking about. Like, it makes
Okay.
calls,
Yeah,
right?
great. Yeah. Okay. You don't have to get into details on
Yeah,
it, but the
yeah,
bottom line is, yeah, it sounds
right.
like you can do that kind of stuff.
So it's actually a really interesting thing. Is like, why would you want to do this? Well, sometimes at work, it turns out that it's really useful to have like your own custom editor or even custom viewer for certain things. This could be the status of data in a database, or it could be the network. What's even just like go out and make a bunch of calls to see the health of the network and visualize it.
Yeah.
There is an investment to making that UI. Now, there's nothing wrong with building a little web page to do that, but what if Visual Studio Code became like your command center, where
Yeah.
with 3 or 4 internally built extensions, you've got an activity bar that lets you switch back and forth between stuff that matters to you at work, whatever your job is there. And you get that for
Yeah, why
free.
not?
Yeah, you get that UI for free. You don't have to go build, you don't have to build this shell. You don't have to, it's just done. So it's like one step removed from file new project on a website where now you got to build the UI. Instead, you say like, hey, I've got something where I want to view something, and having a tabbed view would be very useful, and having a tree view to go through our servers maybe, or our environments or something. Like, I would just want to click on it and just show me stuff. I feel like that could be really useful.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think the whole thing is very cool.
Yeah, so I mean, hopefully, even though, to your point, I think what you noticed is that now that we kind of got things going, it really gets your brain moving, and you say, and it's easy to start saying like, okay, well, what's next? What's next? and we kind of
my brain's racing through ideas already.
Yeah. And we kind of got stuck on like, well, I don't yet know what to do with. I think I know for sure I could make it so that right-clicking over this or clicking over this would make stuff. And I think that's something we can reserve for a future show, because, you know, we're always looking for show ideas. We can say, hey, we're going to continue working on our Visual Studio Code extension and follow along and help us out and get the code on GitHub and stuff like that. So I feel like it's a good idea.
It is.
Anyways, hopefully those of you watching...
This is a really great episode.
Yeah, hopefully folks watching, whether you're watching now or in the future, hopefully it helped you out, right?
Yeah. That's cool. You hear me?
Yeah, I hear you just fine. I was just getting back to being able to see OBS and get us back on the screen.
Oh, that's us. Look at that.
Yeah.
I was actually just looking at some other stuff here. How to do context menus. There's all kinds of stuff you can do in here. Good God.
Yeah. See, now you're excited. So in a couple weeks, Andy is going to come on
tonight.
And Andy's going to be like, hey, look how far I've taken the Dev Talk Show extension.
Possibly. Possibly not. But, you know, there's a lot of use cases. Like you said, there's a lot of use cases that could, you know, be done. And if they're not that hard to do, I mean, even if you don't publish them, I mean, I know that's somewhat like you should publish it, but like, even if you just write it for yourself, there's probably a way to locally sideload these things.
Yeah.
And do like internal dev tools and stuff like that. And you know, you could probably have some like, I don't know, does VS Code already have like a snippet editor?
So snippets,
like extension
you can add snippets through this. When we were in Yo, if you remember from the beginning of the show, one of the things that we could do, and I'll quickly switch back over, is one of the things that we could do. Let me clear this. Whoops, I picked the wrong thing, of course. Clear, and I say Yo code. Yo code is besides creating an extension, I could say I'm creating new code snippets.
Oh yeah.
I'm creating a new extension pack. I'm creating a new color theme. So there's more to it than just creating your extensions, but that's how we started tonight, with just with extensions.
Right. All right. This is great. I love
cool.
It. Thank you, Chris.
Hey, no problem.
Really
it's fun.
Good show.
It's fun.
Really good topic. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I hope you get started with it if you're watching. You know, it's Node, Git, the Yeoman NPM package, and then you're on your way. You're on your way. So best of luck. Show us what you make. Tell us about it in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, like it, subscribe, send it to friends, and comment about what you think, not about this. If you've worked on extensions, let us know your tips. Maybe some of the things that we didn't know how to do. If you put it in the comments, then somebody watching the show will be like, oh, wait a second, that person answered how to get the right-click stuff set up, how do you get the context menus going, and we'll come back on the show and probably use your tips. That would be fantastic. So don't hesitate to let us know. So yeah.
It's a good idea.
All right, Andy. Don't forget to check us out on our meetup, meetup.com. look for the Dev Talk Show there. You'll check out our schedule. And on Twitter, we are at the Dev Talk Show. So that's it for tonight. We will be back on June 29th. And then after that, we're heading into the 4th of July week, which even though 4th of July is not on a Wednesday, I'm pretty sure that we will probably take that Wednesday off. I think that's pretty much, I think, guaranteed. We haven't put it on the schedule, but I think that's going to happen. But look for an announcement for the 29th. As always, 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern, right here on Twitch or on YouTube at the Dev Talk Show channel. So until next time, hope you had a great time. And for my co-host, Andy, we will see you on the Dev Talk Show.